All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. The Niners' new head of scouting is Tariq Ahmad, and he sat down with Matt Barrows from The Athletic and talked a little bit about the most recent 49er draft class. We'll talk a little bit about that and some of his observations coming up next. But first, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. And we're also brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove. Call Anthony Catania at 831-521-5264 for all your sports cards and collectible needs. All right, let's talk a little bit about Tariq Ahmad. So Adam Peters moved on to the Washington Commanders, and the Niners promoted both Tariq Ahmad and R.J. Gillen to replace him. And Ahmad is the 49ers director of player personnel. So he's not the general manager per se. He's kind of like the head of the amateur scouting. And he sat down with Matt Barrows after the draft and he went through, each guy that the Niners drafted and some thoughts on them. And we're going to share them with you right here in this video. Ahmad's an interesting guy in that he's been with the Niners for a while. He's actually based in New Jersey. So you don't really see him a lot walking around the facility because he's based in the East. And he likes being based out there because he can go to games more easily. There's probably more games in a shorter amount of time. He doesn't have to so much time traveling all the way out to the West Coast. And so he's based in New Jersey and is only in the 49ers building from time to time throughout the course of a season. And he sat down with Matt Barrows for roughly an hour and talked about all the different Niner draft choices. And there's definitely some anecdotes that I think are really interesting and that we're going to pass along to you. But it's a really good article, and I would definitely encourage you all to order The Athletic and read Matt Barrows as he breaks down the 49ers. Now, let's start with Ricky Pearsall, the first-round draft choice out of the University of Florida. He started at ASU. He transferred to Florida. One of the things that kind of came up with Tariq Ahmad was that Pearsall has a 4.05 short shuttle time, which was the sixth fastest of any player at the combine. So they really liked this player. They thought he was coming out a year ago, so they did a lot of their work a year ago and really liked this player over the course of this entire season because they liked him last year. And so they knew him so well and had such a conviction that he was their guy that they didn't even bring him in to Santa Clara for a pre-draft visit. Each team gets 30 guys they can bring in. And a lot of us will say, hey, they brought in player X and that shows some interest. Well, that shows what they're doing is that they're looking for more information on that player. In this case, they really liked Ricky Pearsall. They felt like they knew all they needed to know about the player, and so they'd used their one of their 30 visits on somebody else they had questions about and never brought Pearsall to Santa Clara, because when you do, that also kind of alerts teams that you're, significantly interested, and they probably wanted to camouflage their interest so they could better get the player in the draft. The Niners knew him so well that they just felt like they didn't need to bring him in. And one of the things that Ahmad talks about is Pearsall's toughness, that the Niners loved his toughness. They loved his physicality going over the middle. And to me, that is great to hear, because that is my one question. When you watch the film of Ricky Pearsall, you can see the ball skills. You can see the hands. You can see the great footwork and the advanced, head and shoulder fakes and all the different things that go into trying to shake somebody who's trying to mirror you up and down the field. He's got a lot of that. What you don't see in a lot of those highlights is you just don't see the toughness. I'm not saying it's not there. I'm just saying it's not readily apparent sometimes watching his highlight reel. You don't see his toughness. So the fact that the Niners really fell in love with the movement ability and the toughness and the physicality going over the middle and felt like he was a good fit, to me, that answers my primary question about Ricky Pearsall is the toughness. Now, I compared him to Danny Amendola. Amendola was really, really tough. A lot of people said, "Oh God, you really don't like Pearsall. You compared him to Amendola." Amendola played 14 years in the NFL. Amendola won 2 Super Bowl rings. Amendola led the league in kickoff return yards one year. I mean, Amendola is a pretty damn good player. If Ricky Pearsall plays 14 years in the NFL and wins a couple Super Bowl rings and leads the NFL and punt return yards one year, I think a lot of people will be saying positive things about him. So to compare him to Amendola, people are just immediately like, "Oh, Amendola sucks." No, Amendola was damn good, and he was really hard guy to mirror because he had all kinds of moves and body control and stop and start quickness and all these things that would just help him separate. My question with Pearsall outside of the toughness is the same question that I had with Amendola, which is I would have if the Niners had an Amendola, which is I can see the ability through footwork and advanced route running to separate. I see a guy who can separate. But what I don't see is when a guy separates and then he gets in the clear and now he's running in the clear, I don't think he maintains that separation. So it's going to be really important that Brock Purdy, when he does separate, get him the ball as fast as possible because he can separate, but then he doesn't have great vertical speed. He doesn't have a great 4.4 is good, but he doesn't have that ability to just once he separates, he's gone. He's not that kind of a guy. He gets separation and you got to get him the ball because once he's in the open, he gets separation on his stop and start and his change of direction and his 3-cone was amazing. And, it's the agility in a short area that helps him gain that separation. But when the DB then has the open grass to then just air it out, you see that separation getting closed down. And you saw that with Amendola and some players like that, where they're route running and they're their fakes and they're just everything that goes into being a great route runner, their quickness in and out of the break, the balance, it's all there. They separate, but they don't keep that separation in the open field. In the open field, the faster NFL corners used to close down the gap on Amendola, and I think will on Pearsall. So there you go. That's what I see. People saying he's bad. No, he's not bad. People saying he's great. He is great against air, and he's great against tryout caliber corners. When he gets in there against Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant, when he gets in there against Quinyon Mitchell and the Eagles corners, and he gets that separation, he'll get the separation. But then in the open field, they'll close that separation. And so it's going to be about the timing and how well the Niners can get him the ball. So there you go. But I love the fact that Ahmad's talking about how the Niners loved his toughness and physicality, because that's one of the questions I would have. And if he's super tough and super physical across the middle, if you promised me he was that, I'd promise you success. So the fact that they like that about him, that's one of the things I really enjoyed reading this article. Now let's move on to Renardo Green, the cornerback from Florida State. A lot of people had him going in the 4th or 5th round. The Niners, Dane Brugler had him in the 4th round as the 17th cornerback drafted. He went late 2nd, and he was the 10th cornerback drafted. Got passed over for the Senior Bowl, but did play in the East-West Shrine game and opened some eyes there. He only had 1 interception in 5 seasons at Florida State. But what the Niners love and what Ahmad talked about is they love his toughness. They love his physicality. When they talked to the Florida State coaches, they said, man, this is a guy who loves to hit. This is a guy who lives to tackle in the open field. That jived with what the Niner coaches and scouts saw on film from Renardo Green, according to Tariq Ahmad. And he even kind of compared him to Diamador Lenore, that, he's got the toughness and the hitting ability and the ability to strike a receiver kind of like Lenore. The other thing that came out, and this is one of those things where you have to meet the guy. You really have to do your sleuth work as a scout and really ask around and really figure out what you're looking for is what's the essence of a player. because the essence of a player is what's going to bubble to the surface in the NFL. And one of the things that keeps coming up about Renardo Green is that he's really, really passionate about playing football, which is a great thing. And he is an insane competitor. And to me, those two traits are, they will vault you above a little bit of size or arm length or, foot speed or three cone. If you did it at a high level and are passionate and you're a competitor, man, I love that. I love the toughness and the physicality. I love a guy who shows up to beat you. He loves to hit. He loves to tackle. He's passionate about football, and he's a super competitor. So that's what came out about Renardo Green. Tariq Ahmad commented on that. I thought that was really interesting. All right, let's move on to Dominic Puni in the third round, the guard out of Kansas. And the thing that jumped out to Tariq Ahmad on Puni is that the people who run, the team, there's two teams that individually coach the Senior Bowl, and their coaching staffs will put guys in different spots. Well, they put Puni at center Senior Bowl week, and he did really well against Michael Hall Jr. And Michael Hall Jr. is led the nation this year in pass rush win rate among defensive tackles. He's enormously quick at 295 pounds. And the fact that Puni, who's a guard and had been playing tackle and guard, really, they played him at center. He quickly adapted, and by the end of the week, he was blocking Michael Hall Jr. At a high level. That to me shows major athleticism because Hall's quick as a hiccup. And the other thing about Puni that the Niners discovered is that he really competes. And that he's a student of the game. His technique improved during Senior Bowl week as the week progressed. They also love the 4-4 shuttle, the short shuttle, which shows great quickness. That's a good time for a big wide receiver. For 6'5", 313-pound offensive guards, if you're running a 4-4 short shuttle, you're enormously quick with quick feet. And that's one of the traits the Niners really loved about Puni is not only is he strong and he's a battler and he's tough and he'll fight you. And he looked good at center against the quickness of Michael Hall Jr. without a whole lot of time to prepare. And then his short shuttle of 4-4 shows what the film shows is that he's exceptionally quick at 6'5", 313 pounds and has very, very quick feet. So, that's one of those things where you love it, right? Because you got a number that kind of shows you and kind of proves to you that a guy has quickness. And then when you see him in practice against Michael Hall Jr. from Ohio State, who gave Drake Nugent just fits in the Ohio State-Michigan game, well, Puni handled him. Puni handled him and could handle the quickness without playing center much in his career. So that was a great sign. I really loved to hear that from Tariq Ahmad. Let's move on to Malik Mustafa, the safety from Wake Forest. And I think in this guy, Matt was saying that the Niners aren't telling people who their gold helmet designations are anymore. I don't think they want to put that on the player anymore. But there's a very good chance that Malik Mustafa was one of them. Why? Because he is a lot of the traits that they love. He was a team captain at Wake Forest. They said he was one of the best interviews they did in Indianapolis at the Combine. He's mature. He's incredibly smart. He's confident. Not to mention he's an experienced player who played 35 games at Wake Forest. He's extremely physical. And John Lynch said he was one of his favorite interviews. So they didn't even bring him to Santa Clara for a pre-draft 30 visit because they had such a conviction that he fit what they wanted in every capacity as a player, as a person, as a leader. But as I said, they had lost Jimmy Ward and Emmanuel Mosley in free agency. And they lost two really good players and two really good run defenders, but they also lost two real leaders back there, two mature, tough, smart, confident, experienced dogs, real leaders in their secondary. And those guys are hard to replace. But in Malik Mustafa and Renardo Green, I feel like they have replaced those guys. And to hear, Tariq Ahmad talking about, how they love this kid and how, I would guess that Malik Mustafa was one of their gold helmet designations because they loved him as a player, as a person, as a leader. So much of that gold helmet designation thing comes into not just what kind of player you are, what kind of personality do you add to the locker room. So the fact that Malik Mustafa, checked so many of the Niner boxes, I would not be shocked at all if Malik Mustafa was a guy that they had the gold helmet designation for. All right, let's jump to Isaac Guerendo, the running back from Louisville, also a 4th-round pick. They traded their 2/5 to move into the 4th. And one of the factors that Ahmad mentioned to Barrows is that every aspect of their organization was pro Guerendo. So the research and development people loved him early on based on his 4.33 speed. The scout, Ryan Kesenich, I believe his name is, loved him a lot and really pounded the table and told his story and was a big fan of Guerendo, who started only one game since 2018, and it was against USC. And if you watch that game, how could you not be impressed? Supposedly the Niners were very impressed by what he did against USC in that one game. And why wouldn't you be? He rumbled for 160 yards up and down the field. I think he scored multiple touchdowns. He was terrific. Now Guerendo has had hamstring injuries in the past. He did have a Liz Frank injury in 2021, but he, was awesome against SC in his one start at the very end of his career, the bowl game. He showed he can block. He showed he can catch. And with the new kickoff return rules, you want somebody who can get up to full speed quickly and who can break tackles. And the Niners see Guerendo as almost an ideal fit for that new kickoff return rules and how they're structured, because this guy's got big speed. He can break tackles. And he's got that ability to really be dynamic on special teams. And then the 1-5-4 10-yard split. So not only, the one thing about the Niners is they want all their backs to hit the hole. I mean, if you said, give me a trait that Bobby T loves in his running backs, he doesn't want the guy who's dancing at the line. He doesn't want Le'Veon Bell. He doesn't want Trey Sermon. He doesn't want those guys. He wants Frank Gore. He wants the guy who's going to hit the hole hard and be gone. And this, you look at Guerendo, not only did he have the 4.33, but he has the 1-5-4 10-yard split. So he's quick as a hiccup. He's shot out of a cannon. And they really like that, and they feel like he's a good fit. So we'll see. It's a little bit of a projection, right? Because he hasn't played a ton of college football. Then Jacob Cowing, Tariq Ahmad says they love his maturity. They loved his professionalism, that his professionalism really stood out to the 49ers. And, this was one of the things that, Tariq says that he really likes to, instead of watching games on film, he likes to go to the stadium and watch the games in person. And that's part of the reason he's based in New Jersey still, because he likes going to games and getting those little bits of information that being in attendance give you that you don't get on the tube. And Cowing is a great example of that, because one of the things that Ahmad told Barrows was that he really loved Jacob Cowing's pregame routine and how his pregame prep was very detailed and showed his level of professionalism and his level of attention to detail. So I thought that was kind of cool that this guy's, is he smart? Yeah. Is he quick? Is he fast? Yeah. He runs in the 4.3s. Was he productive? Hell yeah, he really was. Caught 16 balls for 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. And, was one of the most productive receivers in the country, regardless of age or size. But what they really loved and thought it was a major difference in him compared to other guys is they loved when they saw before the game, the kind of the process they put himself through on the field. His professionalism stood out. The fact that his pregame preparation was very detailed and probably remind them of the level of preparation that NFL receivers go through. But to see that at the collegiate level kind of told them that Cowing was the real deal and ready to contribute. And then let's move on to the last 2 guys. Jarrett Kingston, the offensive lineman for USC. I thought this was interesting. He said Ahmad told Barrows that, that Kingston ran a 4.47 short shuttle in Indianapolis, which was an excellent time. He also had the 1.72 10-yard split at, roughly 300 pounds, which is the fourth fastest among all the offensive guards. And then he just mentioned that, you know what, he kind of painted the picture as the Niners really defer a lot to Chris Forster in their evaluation of offensive linemen. They did it last year in season when they added Ben Barch. Forster told me the story late in the year how a Jacksonville coach said, "Hey man, this guy, you'd really like this guy." And so Forster pounded the table for Barch when he was out there. Now he's a Niner and will have a chance to win a job this summer. But Ahmad mentioned to Barrows that Jarrett Kingston was a favorite of Chris Forster, and then kind of indicated that Forster likes guys that are quick and powerful and explosive. And Kingston was checked all those boxes. He's quick, he's powerful, he's explosive. His 32 and an eighth inch hands or arm length is too short for offensive tackle, so he's an interior player. But they loved, that he really improved at USC's pro day, and he looked really, really good there. He also put up 36 reps on the bench, which doesn't necessarily show anything other than you're spending a lot of time taking your craft seriously. You don't put up 36 reps on the bench without spending a lot of time in the weight room, and you don't spend a lot of time in the weight room unless you're really motivated to have a great career. So that 36 rep number told them that Kingston was really a pro as far as the way he goes about preparing. And then Tatum Bethune, the linebacker from Florida State, another one where the Niners are leaning on their coaching staff. Tariq Ahmad pointed out that Johnny Holland loved him, and that what Johnny loved the most about Tatum Bethune was how quick he processed what he saw. And if you watch Tatum Bethune's film from Florida State, the one thing that stands out to me is he's always around the football. But before you're always around the football, you got to process things correctly. And according to Johnny Holland, Johnny loves him because he processes things really quickly. He also has great short area quickness. And, you're talking about a 7th round linebacker. Those guys always make their make their name on special teams. And this guy's got special teams potential. That he loves to run and loves to hit and could contribute right away on special teams. So it sounded like, when it came time for Bethune, Johnny Holland loved him. When it was Kingston, it was like Chris Forster loves this guy and wants him. So in those cases, they really listened to their coaches. With Cowing, they loved the pregame rituals and preparations and how he really took his craft very seriously. About Guerendo, everybody seemed to like him, from the area scout to the research and development to everybody who watched his film. And they loved the SC game. They loved his ability to break tackles. They see him as a major player with the new kickoff rules. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then, as far as Mustafa, I bet you he was a gold helmet designation, though we're never going to know. But they just loved how, this guy was incredibly physical, but he's mature, smart, confident, experienced, team captain. Sounds like they really loved everything about Mustafa. About Puni, they loved that short shuttle. They loved the quick feet. They loved how he competes. They loved how he handled Michael Hall at center, a spot that he hadn't been playing on a regular basis. And then on Renardo Green, they loved the fact that they loved his toughness and physicality. They loved the fact that he hits and tackles and is similar to Diamador Lenore. And they love the fact that he's just a crazy competitor and he's very passionate about playing football. And as far as Ricky Pearsall, they loved the short shuttle, which was really fast. But they loved the toughness and the physicality that he showed going over the middle of the field. So Barrows does some amazing stuff. And this interview with Tariq Ahmad was fantastic. And I would encourage all you guys to go online and check out The Athletic and read Matt Barrows and this article that he has on Tariq Ahmad. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles in Pacific Grove. Give Anthony Catania a call at 831-521-5264. Thanks to them for sponsoring this video, and thanks to all you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.